Hello everyone, welcome to our study abroad podcast series. And this time we have Riya from Singapore who will be sharing her experiences. Thank you, Riya, for coming.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
So we'll start our discussion points. So very first thing we wanted to ask is you are a student at NIT. You are an engineering student, and then you came to Singapore for your MIM studies. So how was that decision making process happened initially from the engineering to management?
Okay, so I'm from NIT Rourkela. I did my chemical engineering. And honestly, there was no, as such, I didn't make a decision. I wanted to go abroad for masters. So how it happened was I was in my final year, just the onset of final year, and it was also the onset of COVID, and we were all stuck at home under lockdown, and everything was very uncertain. The placement scenario was also very uncertain because we didn't know what companies would be coming for campus placements and how would they be coming, especially since I'm in chemicals, so there was a lot of ambiguity in that. So initially, during my first 2 months of my final year, I realized that not many companies were coming in because they too weren't sure of how to conduct the process, and especially not for chemical engineering department. So that was the time I decided that maybe I wanted something as a backup. Why not try for masters? So to be very honest, I didn't think I really wanted to do masters at that point, but I was like, let's try something and see how it works out. So I did apply. I wanted to do it abroad because I wanted international exposure. And honestly, when I was applying, I knew that Singapore is closest to India, and it's like it's the time difference is very less, and it's very safe for girls. So plus, I have a very close family and family friends who are living in Singapore. So that was obviously my first choice. So I did apply to the universities across Singapore first, and I thought that let me just give it a try. If this doesn't work out, then I probably give CAT next year, and then I see how it works if I don't get a job. So what I mean, the good news was that by the end of my seventh semester, I had a job offer at Schneider Electric through my campus placement. At the same time, I also had an offer from NUS, which is National University of Singapore, as well as Singapore Management University. Both I had offers, and so at that point, I didn't know that what should I choose. I mean, I obviously wanted to work because I was not very inclined doing masters at that point. I did defer both my admissions for a year because I wanted to work first. And I worked at Schneider Electric as a software design engineer for 1 year. And while I was working, I realized that probably this is not something that I want to do. I don't want to remain in a purely technical environment where I'm sitting behind a software, and I couldn't really see the output of my work on a much faster pace because I was working with R&D. But that's when I decided that probably doing a management degree and studying business as a whole would give me an idea into the other sets of other aspects of business as well. So that's how I decided to, I love my job. I love the people, the team, and everything in Hyderabad. I was posted in Hyderabad, but I decided to let that go and come to Singapore for my master's degree with SMU because firstly I prefer the course and also I got a scholarship. So all in all, it seemed like a good decision after 1 year of me getting through. Yeah.
So you applied to NUS and SMU only in your like.
Yes, I applied to in Singapore, applied to NUS, SMU, and NTU, all three. But I got a convert from SMU and NUS both, and a scholarship from SMU.
And you didn't think about other countries as such initially because you thought first try this,
Yeah.
whatever happens, let's see, and then we'll decide about any other
Yes,
country.
it was just the pure reason for me applying for masters was because the uncertainty of COVID, and I had a lot of time in my hand just because of COVID. So my first preference was always to work, but I'm happy I did apply for masters because at the end I happened to take the degree and come to Singapore. Yeah.
Okay. So NUS was also like master in management side, or it was more the technical side?
Both were business. So one was master in management in SMU, and NUS was marketing analytics. So at that point, I didn't know I wanted to just specialize in marketing, but I wanted a overall general management kind of exposure and a degree. That's how I went ahead with SMU.
Okay, okay, sure. And you had to like the documentation for this application. You had to write any test like IELTS, GRE, TOEFL, anything like that. What was the requirements for the application?
Okay, so the first process of application is once you selected the course that you want to go for. I'll talk about SMU because that's what I'm currently doing. So in SMU, you have an option of giving the GRE, GMAT, or the SMU admission test. So you can give any of the three. Now, because my decision was such an impromptu decision, I didn't want to go ahead with GRE, GMAT. I gave the SMU admission test, which is exactly the same format as your CAT and GRE. And I was already preparing for my placements online test as well. So it's kind of a similar quantitative, verbal, logical reasoning, and the same kind of format. So once you apply for the position, so you have to write 2,000 words essay that what motivates you, and basically a SOP kind of a thing. And then you have to give your resume, and you have to give your mark sheets of your college, and also you have to give your two recommendations. So because I was in school and I was in NIT, I gave recommendation from two of my professors. Once that goes through, once you are shortlisted from that first step, you they ask you if you want to give the SME admission test, and then once you say yes, you can book a date. They're going to give you study materials for it as well. So I prepared for it, and I gave the test after a month of preparation. And once you clear that, you have a 40 minutes interview, which was very general CV related interview, and also why this program, why Singapore, and very general questions. And also related to my past internships and how these internships kind of encouraged me to do a master's degree, and why I switched from engineering to management. So very general questions of interview. And once you clear the interview, you get a conditional offer because I hadn't graduated back then, so that offer is only confirmed once I graduate from college. So once I got a final offer, I applied for scholarships. So there are multiple scholarships that you can apply for, that you think that is best suited for you. So the way you apply for scholarship is you again have to write essays on why you deserve the scholarship, and how can you help the society, and so on and so forth. And once they kind of go through your essays, and then based on your essays, they decide what scholarship to give you and how much percentage of scholarship and how much amount to give you, so on and so forth. Yeah. That was the entire process.
And regarding the visa, how was the visa done for you, the student visa?
So honestly, Singapore student visa is not a problem at all because everything is done by the university. I just have to submit my details, my passport. I think my passport, my photograph, and the final offer. Everything else is done from their side. And once you get something called in principle approval, which is like you just get a piece of paper saying that your visa is approved in principle, but you have to come to Singapore and you have to go to the Immigration Control Authority, and then they take your biometrics and they give you a card. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, once you get it, all you do is get the admit. Once you do it, get it, is everything is done by the university.
And when you came to Singapore, how was the initial adjustment, accommodation hunt, etc.?
Okay, so as I mentioned, I have like very close family and friends living here, so they were a big help to me. But I mean, I think you read it in the news. Singapore is the most expensive city to live in the world, so definitely it's very expensive. It's the majority of your expense in Singapore is your house rent. So if you're staying somewhere in the central area, which is a very good area, then you house rent for one room in an apartment with all amenities like swimming pool, gym, etc., can take anywhere up to 1.5K to 2K. And we said staying a little outside, it can take up to 1.2K to 1.5K. So that's like the majority place where your highest expense that goes out. Other than that, I think I mean going through, so it's not that difficult to find an apartment, especially post COVID. So you can go through Property Guru and stuff like online, but I went through contacts, so you can get that as well. And other than that, the other major expense would be your metro travel, which is what I use. So because cabs are too expensive, so metro travel is again around $40 to $50 a month. So, but yeah, overall in general, Singapore life can be very expensive, but it depends on where you stay, how you have your lifestyle and stuff like that.
What about the food adjustment? Like, were you okay with the food changes, etc.?
So there are many, many Indians in Singapore. Another reason for me choosing Singapore is that there are a lot of Indians. You have a lot of Indian options, especially South Indian food is really good. Idli dosa and stuff is really good and comparatively cheaper. So, but if it's the best, ideally, if you cook at home. So if you cook at home, it's kind of comes out to be cheaper than eating out always, unless you can eat the local food, which is also very cheap. So food wise, and while I was in university, I had like discounted prices in the canteen of my university. So I used to mostly eat out from there, or I used to cook at home. So it's, yeah. So otherwise, food was not really much of an issue in Singapore.
And you studied at NIT, Rourkela, and SMU. How do you see the education, the way the teaching happens, the way the professors behave, the way your class behaves in terms of attendance, and the way the lectures are delivered, the homeworks are given? What differences did you see in the education standard?
Okay, so this is completely my point of view. Other people might have other point of view on how they have that experience. But because I'm from, okay, so I'll say positives first. So I am from NIT Rourkela, which is a very old government college. Versus when I came to Singapore and SMU, the infrastructure, the classrooms, the monitor, the screen is definitely way better than what it was at NIT Rourkela. It's like the teaching, and plus my degree was very different. I did engineering, which is a different way of teaching. Here I was doing management, so it's mostly around class discussions, case studies, and you have to be very attentive in class. You have to come prepared beforehand so you can take part in discussion, because discussions have around 20 to 30% of the total final weightage of your grade. So yeah, so the way of teaching was very different. What one major thing is in NIT, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I'm pretty sure you know that engineers, we study like towards the last minute, basically 1 week before the exam is when we start studying. But this wasn't the case in SMU. In SMU, we had to study, we were kind of forced, because as I mentioned, class participation, we had regular class tests, and the pace was very fast, a very fast paced course. It's just 1.5 years long. So they teach a lot of things. You have to be always up to date. It's very competitive. Everyone is striving to do the best. But yeah, so I mean, I think, and plus, I think in NIT, we had a culture of asking our friends for doubts. Before the exam, we used to all huddle up in a room and someone just explain the concepts to us, whoever knew the best concepts the best. Here, what I see is that this way of learning is not there, because everyone is very competitive. Everyone is equally good, I would say. So, the best way is to ask your professors. Professors are very prompt on emails. So, if you email them during office hours, they will reply. You can book slots and times, like 1 hour, 40 minutes, to just a one-on-one session to clear your doubts, even on the weekends. So professors are very accommodating and helpful, and I used to just directly go and ask professors for doubts whenever I had them. So, and plus, I have a more keener interest in management and business compared to engineering, I feel now. So I myself like the subject and courses more. So yeah, that would be the major difference. But on the negative side, I would say I made better friends in NIT. I had a better, I mean, I made friends for life, which, and so the bonding and the warmth was much better in yeah, in NIT versus what it is in Singapore. But yeah, you get to intermingle with other nationalities, which is and you get to know their thought process. You have a lot of group work and team activities and presentations, so you kind of have to, forced to mingle with other nationalities. That's an excellent exposure and opportunity for you to learn and grow.
What about the placement internships that you got
Okay,
in SMU?
so anywhere out of India, this entire concept of campus placement does not exist. So you have to, put a lot of effort. It's not easy getting a job, getting a placement, and getting an internship. It's not easy. I mean, internship is fine, because you already have a student visa, so it's okay. But getting an employment pass in, I don't know about other countries, in Singapore, it's very difficult because they've made the rules extra strong. If you're a permanent resident or a local citizen, Singaporean citizen, you're definitely more preferred. There have been many companies which were willing to offer me a role, but not in Singapore, in like Malaysia, Philippines, and stuff, because they had this whole problem with the employment pass. But how the college helps is that we have career fairs where different companies come in and then they talk about their company and the roles available. But it's much more difficult. It's not like this. It's not served to you in a platter, how it's served in the government, the best government colleges in India. Here, what happens? You have to go and you really network and put yourself out there, and you have to like connect with people, go on LinkedIn. So the way I got my internship was directly applying through my portal, and they called me, and that's how I got the internship. I interned with GSK Consumer Healthcare, and I was doing brand management for Sensodyne. So I interned for a period of 9 months, but I wanted to convert my internship there. They were very willing to take me, but they were offering me a role in Malaysia and back in India. And because I have been living in Singapore and I have family here, I didn't want to move out. I mean, of course, India is definitely an option in the end, but I didn't want to move to any other country when I've already been living in Singapore. So that's when I started looking for other jobs and other opportunities. But what I realized is that if you directly just apply through their company portal, the chances of it being converting to a full time is very less because they would ask you a question if you're a PR or a citizen. And if you say no, automatically systems kind of reject your application. So the best way I would say is to connect and network through LinkedIn. I'm currently again working right now, and the way I'm working in digital marketing and performance marketing in Singapore. But I got through this job through LinkedIn because I connected and I reached out, and the recruiter actually messaged me, and that's how it went ahead. So it's not easy. I think I'm one of the lucky ones who got a job before I graduated. Otherwise, but yeah, you really have to put yourself out there and try and network and connect as much as possible. It's not easy.
Sure, sure. So networking is important.
Yeah, very important in connecting with people. Yeah.
So you already got a job, and so what's your future goal like in few years? You have any plans you have made?
Okay, so I just started working. I graduated in December. I just started working. It's been almost 2 months. I'm working now. I think my ultimate and final goal would definitely be to go back to India, because that is where my happy place is. Overall, I would still want to go back and settle in India. But I think initially because I just started working, I want to understand and see how the corporate culture is, how work ambience is in Singapore, and Singapore is like a stepping stone to the world. So it kind of gives me an exposure to the other countries as well, because most of the companies have the APAC heads in Singapore. So it's like a hub. So it's definitely giving me a lot to learn, and a huge opportunity for me to explore other countries as well, staying in Singapore. But end goal, yeah, would be to definitely move back and settle in India.
So what advice would you give to the aspirants, your junior, your potential juniors who's uh, thinking about studying abroad in future?
So, if you're thinking of studying in Singapore, what I would say specifically in Singapore, it's the academic part is really good. Singapore has one of the best colleges in the world, one of the best rankings in the world, and if you're thinking of studying here, it's a great choice. But the only thing you have to keep in mind is that getting a job is not easy. You have to really, really work hard towards it and start applying earlier. And if you think that the college is actually going to give you a job, that's not going to happen. They're just going to help you, fix your resume and your cover letter, and they're going to give you interview tips, but they're not going to bring the company to you. So you have to go to the company, and you kind of have to just kind of prove yourself that you're the best and best there out there. So getting a job is not easy, but if you're okay with this mindset that you're okay to moving to other countries, then I think Singapore is again a very good option in Southeast Asia, because this is the best place to be in, I would say, in this region. And also it's a chance for you to mingle with other nationalities, to have a look and see where you stand, and your exposure to other people, and learn a lot from them. So it's a good choice, but just remember about job and placement that it'll be difficult and you have to try hard.
Sure, sure. I think that's true for most study abroad locations. The job hunting has to be done. I
Yeah,
mean, it's part of the learning. It's not part of the responsibility is not on the college. It's on you only.
yeah.
Sure. So thank you, Ria, for your time and sharing your insights and knowledge and experience to our audience. And hopefully our audience got some clarity listening and looking at this podcast. So thank you very much for your time. So we'll be in touch with LinkedIn. Take care.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.